the Browns are considering options, plural. So there might not be one solution. I've heard, Yeah, so I don't know what the solution is, but if you're Dillon Gabriel, you're probably feeling unwanted right now, I would think.
The Browns are walking into mandatory minicamp with one problem that can either define their season or split the entire fan base before training camp even starts. This is not just another June practice week. This is the first real checkpoint where Todd Monken has to stop talking in general terms and start showing people how he actually views this roster. Quarterback reps, offensive line starters, young receivers, the running game, and the new identity of this team are all about to come into sharper focus, and that is why this minicamp preview matters. The Browns have had a noisy offseason, and every major storyline is connected. Myles Garrett is gone. Jared Verse is in the building. Deshaun Watson is trying to prove he still has something left. Shedeur Sanders is trying to prove he is more than hype. Dillon Gabriel is trying to prove he has not already been pushed out of the real conversation. And Todd Monken is trying to prove that this offense will finally look more modern, more organized, and more dangerous than what Browns fans have been watching. The biggest thing everyone is watching is quarterback reps. That is where the tension starts. Tony Grossi's angle is simple. This week could help determine the early training camp order, not necessarily the final starter for week 1, but the quarterback who leaves minicamp in the pole position. That matters because once training camp starts, the quarterback getting the first team reps gets a real advantage. He gets timing with the top receivers. He gets the protection calls with the starting line. He gets the rhythm of the offense, and in a close competition, those reps become gold.
If the competition in his eyes is as close as it seems, and you have two quarterbacks that are in very different situations, but still obviously have a lot of questions to answer and a lot to prove. Deshaun trying to come back from a twice ruptured Achilles. Other injuries prove that he can still play at a high level.
Right now, it feels like the real battle is Deshaun Watson versus Shedeur Sanders. Todd Monken has talked about having two starting-level quarterbacks, and that phrase has followed the Browns around, because it says a lot without saying everything. If there are two starting-level quarterbacks, then the natural question is, who are they? Everything points toward Watson and Shedeur. That leaves Dillon Gabriel in a very awkward spot, and it turns minicamp into a huge week for him too, even if he is not the headline. Watson is the complicated one. The Browns know what the contract says. They know what they gave up to get him. They know the version of Watson they thought they were trading for, but they also know the version they have actually seen in Cleveland has not been consistent enough, healthy enough, or convincing enough. That is why this minicamp isn't just about whether Watson can complete passes in shorts. It's about whether he looks like a quarterback who can still move, drive the football, process quickly, and operate in Monken's system without looking like the game is moving too fast. From the OTA buzz, Watson has looked better than expected physically. His arm strength has reportedly looked sharper, his movement has looked cleaner, and he hasn't looked like a quarterback still trapped in the injury mentally. That matters because a quarterback returning from major physical questions has to do more than just throw. He has to trust his body again. He has to move without thinking about the injury. He has to roll out, reset, plant, and throw with confidence. If minicamp confirms that Watson is healthier than people expected, that changes the tone of the competition.
Shedeur going into year 2, trying to prove like how much he's developed and how far he's come after a year of under his belt. I think it's fair to want to see more with both these guys.
But Shedeur Sanders is the pressure point. He is the name that has energy behind it. He is the quarterback fans want to see get a fair shot. And from the OTA reaction, people inside and around the team have been impressed by the way he's handling the offense. The important words around Shedeur are timing, rhythm, progressions, quick decisions, and understanding where the ball is supposed to go. That's not just hype. That's the stuff coaches care about when they're trying to decide if a young quarterback can actually run the offense. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Shedeur doesn't need to win the minicamp highlight battle to win the long-term trust battle. A lot of fans will judge every clip by who threw the prettiest deep ball. Coaches are looking at something different. Did he get the ball out on time? Did he identify pressure? Did he know where the motion was supposed to go? Did he understand the concept? Did he put the receiver in position to make a play? Those are the details that decide whether a quarterback is really growing. That is why this week is so important for Shedeur. If he continues to show command, it becomes harder for the Browns to bury him behind Watson just because Watson has the veteran status. If Watson looks healthy and sharp, he probably enters camp as the first guy. But if Shedeur looks comfortable, decisive, and accurate, he can make sure this thing doesn't end in June. He can force Monken to keep the competition alive into training camp and preseason, where real football starts separating practice players from game players.
If I got a neck-and-neck race I guess it makes me feel better, but man, if you get it wrong at the beginning of the year and then the new guy goes in there, it just makes Todd Monken.
Then there's Dillon Gabriel. His situation is strange because he was drafted high enough that people expected him to matter, but the conversation around him has gotten quieter. When Monken talks like there are two starting-level quarterbacks, Gabriel doesn't sound like one of them. When Jared Verse walked into the building and the number 8 situation became a story, it only added to the feeling that Gabriel is being pushed away from the center of the quarterback room. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe he still has a chance, but minicamp has to be urgent for him. Gabriel can't afford to be invisible. He doesn't need to become QB1 this week, but he needs to remind people why the Browns drafted him. He has to be accurate, he has to be clean, he has to look prepared. He has to avoid the kind of mistakes that make coaches say, "We already know what this is." If he leaves minicamp still feeling like the forgotten quarterback, then the training camp depth chart may already be stacked against him. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They try to win the whole job in one practice. Gabriel can't do that, and honestly, Shedeur can't do that either. When a quarterback feels pressure, he can start forcing throws, holding the ball too long, or chasing the one viral play that makes people talk. That's not how you win a real quarterback competition. You win by stacking trust. One correct read, one clean throw, one good protection call, one smart check down, one command moment at a time.
Bad. Like if you pick Deshaun Watson sucks, and you put Shedeur out there and he ends up playing decent, it's going to go against Todd Monken. If you put Shedeur out there and he looks completely lost and sucks up the room, and you put Deshaun Watson out there and he looks like he knows what he's doing and he can make all the calls and do all the things and they look like they're a pretty decent football team, it's going to go against Todd Monken.
The offensive line is the second huge storyline. The Browns can't evaluate the quarterbacks properly if the offensive line is a mess. This is not just about who starts at left tackle or center. It's about whether the Browns can build a front that gives Monken's offense a chance to work. Timing routes need protection. Motion concepts need communication. A young quarterback needs clean pockets. A recovering veteran quarterback needs confidence that he will not be hit immediately. The whole offense begins with the line. That is why the offensive line starters matter so much in minicamp. Cleveland is trying to sort out a unit that has changed. There are young pieces pushing for roles, veterans trying to hold spots, and questions about who fits best in Monken's system. If the Browns want to run more motion, more rhythm passing, more quick game concepts, and more designed movement, the line has to be athletic enough and smart enough to handle it. It's not just 5 big bodies, it's 5 players who have to think as one. The center battle may be one of the most important under-the-radar stories. A center isn't just snapping the ball, they're setting calls, identifying fronts, helping the quarterback, and controlling the communication of the line. If the Browns have a young center pushing for a starting role, minicamp becomes a test of mental speed as much as physical ability. Can he handle the volume? Can he communicate clearly? Can he help Watson and Shedeur stay comfortable? If the answer is yes, that could reshape the entire offensive line. The tackle spots are just as important. If Cleveland has rookie tackles or young linemen climbing the depth chart, the coaches have to decide how fast they want to push them. There's always risk with young offensive linemen. They have talent, but the NFL exposes technique fast. One bad set against a real edge rusher can ruin a drive. But if the young linemen are ready, the Browns can't be afraid to play them. This roster is clearly moving toward a younger core, and minicamp is where those players can start forcing the staff's hand.
That connects directly to the quarterback race. If the offensive line looks better than expected, then the Browns' floor rises. People keep talking like the quarterback has to carry everything, but that is not how Monken should want this offense to work. If the line protects, if the run game is real, and if receivers are getting open through scheme, then the quarterback does not have to be Superman. He has to be efficient. That is a huge difference. The receiver room is another minicamp storyline that could surprise people. From the OTA reaction, the Browns have young wideouts creating buzz and getting open. That matters because Monken's offense is supposed to help receivers with motion, spacing, and cleaner releases. If guys are running wide open in practice, that is not just because defenders are taking it easy. It is also because the play design is creating stress. That is what Browns fans have wanted to see for years, an offense that helps the players instead of asking them to win every rep the hard way. But there is a warning here too. Getting open is not enough. You have to catch the ball. Drops were a frustration in the OTA reaction, and that cannot follow this team into camp. Whether it's Jerry Jeudy, young receivers like Denzel Boston, or anyone fighting for a role, the rule is simple. If the ball hits your hands, finish the play. In a quarterback competition, drops don't just hurt the offense. They mess up the evaluation. A good throw that gets dropped can make a drive look worse than it really was. That's why minicamp is a big opportunity for the young receivers. If a player consistently catches the ball, understands the route, lines up correctly, and earns the quarterback's trust, he can climb fast. Coaches love reliability. Fans love names, but coaches love players who do the job. If one of these young receivers keeps making plays while a veteran keeps leaving opportunities on the ground, the depth chart can change quicker than people think. The running back room is another piece of the puzzle. If Quinshon Judkins looks explosive and the Browns believe they have more juice in the run game, that changes the entire offense. A strong running game protects everyone. It protects Watson if he's the starter. It protects Shedeur if he wins the job. It protects the offensive line by keeping defenses honest. It protects Monken by giving him more play action and movement options. A real run threat turns a quarterback competition into something much more manageable. Defensively, the Browns are also trying to prove they can still be serious without Myles Garrett. That's not easy. Garrett was the one player who could change everything by himself, but the Browns didn't bring in Jared Verse just to be a name in a trade package. They need him to be part of the new identity. They need him to bring energy, edge, and disruption. Minicamp is not where pass rushers fully prove themselves because there's no real hitting, but it is where you can see effort, conditioning, and how quickly a player is absorbing the system. The secondary also has to stabilize. Denzel Ward being bought in is huge because without him, the Browns' defensive backfield would feel shaky. If Ward is present, active, and engaged, that gives the defense credibility. If the young defensive backs are competing, if the linebackers are flying around, if the defense is creating turnovers, then Cleveland can still build a good unit. Maybe it won't be the same defense without Garrett, but it doesn't have to collapse. That brings us to Todd Monken's bigger challenge. This minicamp is about more than plays. It's about control. Monken has to show that this team has direction. The Browns cannot look like a team stuck between rebuilding and competing. They cannot look like a team with 4 quarterback stories and no plan. They cannot look like a young roster waiting for someone else to tell them what they are. Monken has to set the tone now. The Browns are in a weird spot because they traded away a superstar but still have enough talent to avoid looking like a bottom-tier team. That creates pressure. If they were clearly tanking, expectations would be simple. If they were clearly contending, expectations would be simple. But they're somewhere in the middle. They have young talent, a new coach, a quarterback battle, a defense trying to reset, and an offense that might actually be more modern than people expected. That makes minicamp important because it can reveal whether the team is organized or just optimistic. Grossi's preview angle around QB reps is important because reps reveal truth. Coaches can say the competition is open, but the rep distribution tells you what they believe. If Watson gets most of the first-team work, he's the early favorite. If Shedeur starts getting more first-team snaps, the competition is tightening. If Gabriel is mostly on the outside looking in, then his path becomes much harder. Fans should not just listen to what Monken says, they should watch what he does. The same applies to the offensive line. Who lines up with the first team? Who gets rotated in? Who stays late with the coaches? Who is being tested in multiple spots? Those details matter. The Browns need to figure out their best 5, but they also need depth. Injuries happen, young players develop, veterans decline. The line that starts minicamp may not be the line that starts week 1, but minicamp gives us the first real clue about how the coaches see the room. This is also where the Browns' new culture starts to show. After the Garrett trade, there's been a lot of talk about leadership, accountability, and whether the team needed a cleaner reset. Minicamp is where that starts becoming real. Are players locked in? Are young guys pushing veterans? Are quarterbacks commanding the huddle? Is Monken demanding pace? Are mistakes being corrected? Is the energy different? Those things may sound small, but they decide whether a team is building something or just practicing. The legacy angle here is about the Browns finally trying to escape the same loop. For years, Cleveland had talent, but not stability. They had Baker Mayfield and moved on. They took the massive swing on Watson and it didn't deliver the expected return. They had Myles Garrett, one of the best defensive players of his generation, and still never built a consistent winner around him. Now they're trying again with a new head coach, a younger roster, more future resources, and another quarterback question sitting in the middle of everything. That's why this minicamp matters more than a normal June practice. It's the beginning of the next Browns argument. If Watson looks like QB1, some fans will say Monken is playing it safe. If Shedeur looks better, the fan base will demand he gets the job. If Gabriel disappears, people will question why he was drafted where he was. If the offensive line looks young and shaky, fans will worry the quarterbacks can't be evaluated fairly. If the young receivers flash, optimism will explode. Every part of this minicamp feeds the next debate. The Browns don't need to name a week 1 starter this week, but they do need to leave minicamp with a clearer plan. Monken has to know who gets the first shot in training camp. He has to know which linemen are closest to starting. He has to know which receivers are earning trust. He has to know whether the defense is adjusting to life after Garrett. And most importantly, he has to know whether this team is ready to compete or still searching for its identity. So the minicamp preview comes down to this. Watch the reps, not the speeches. Watch who gets the first team quarterback work. Watch whether Shedeur is really closing the gap. Watch whether Watson looks physically comfortable. Watch whether Gabriel is still being treated like part of the future. Watch the offensive line combinations. Watch which receivers finish plays. Watch whether the energy from OTAs carries into mandatory work. Because if the Browns come out of minicamp with Watson in front, a young offensive line taking shape, receivers getting open, and Shedeur still pushing hard, then this game becomes a lot more interesting than people expected. But if the reps are messy, the line looks unsettled, the receivers drop balls, and the quarterback race feels more political than competitive, then the same old Browns questions will come right back. That's the debate heading into minicamp. Are the Browns quietly building something better under Todd Monken, or are they just creating another offseason story that sounds good before real football exposes it? Because minicamp won't decide the season, but it can reveal the direction. And for a team still trying to recover from the Garrett trade, solve the quarterback position, and rebuild its offensive identity, direction is everything.